driver cannot, our bugs, our gaps, So I think this is something Dr. Siva can certainly say a lot, share a lot, right? In your dealings with startups, in your dealings
Yes,
with
absolutely.
all these companies. You heard of this saying, right? Make mistakes early. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
So I think it's a must for us. There's no such thing as perfection. There's a Gen 1, make mistakes with Gen 1 and move to Gen 2, Generation 2 systems. Yeah, and so on and so forth. Mistakes are like our middle names. So I think that's a very good point.
Part and parcel of being a business.
Yeah. So absolutely, Dr. Paul, this is where, we can definitely resonate with the pains and the joys of entrepreneurship, yeah?
But perhaps some business models and for some industries, there's this flexibility to unbundle fast. If you are in a steel production, for example, you can overnight say, I want to get rid of the steel mills.
Yeah, that's true.
But if you are running a restaurant, you can say, maybe I close it for 6 months.
That's why for those in very capital intensive industry, right, the element of, due diligence, the feasibility studies, right, are very intense in the beginning. And the problem that they face in the early stages, even done by any Big 4, Big 10 or Big 50 consultants, is that there's the part on scenario planning that's always lacking. They look at a situation or feasibility at one point in time, right? And then come up with a solution for that point in time, and then address the issue for that point in time. But you find that in any feasibility studies, right, the scenarios are given less of emphasis, so to speak. And we spend, less than 30% on scenario planning. If the plans go awry, what do you do with plan B, plan C, plan D? It comes to feasibility studies. So typical consultant, when they do feasibility studies, they tend to map out the solution for that given situation. But I think from now on, in a VUCA world, right, you've got to spend at least half of the paper on planning multiple scenarios and multiple reaction for feasibility studies to be really effective and impactful. Same thing like business plan. I'm sure Dr. Siva, Charles have seen lots of people seeking funding, right? Seeking, partnerships and all that, right? So when they seek funding, they map out how fantastic their scenarios are and all that. But the contingency, plan A, plan B, plan C seems to be lacking in many of these papers. I'm not sure. What do you think, Dr. Siva and Charles?
Well, we always say whatever you plan will never come true. You can plan as much as you want. You can show whatever you want in your presentation decks and all that.
Yeah.
We've worked with companies for 20 years now. We've coached maybe like 700, 800 companies already. And I can tell you for a fact, no one has ever had a deck that has come through after 1 or 2 years.
80% would have changed, yeah?
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, it's what they think or what they, especially in the startup world. Maybe like Dr. Paul said, in the steel industry, it's easier to plan. But in the startup world, in the technology world, it's really hard to plan so far ahead. So realistically, you can plan 12 months ahead. Anything more than that, it's very hard to plan for.
But then again, investors would like to see a 3 to 5 year plan, isn't it?
No, nowadays investors, like VC investors and all that, no longer ask for business plans. You just have to present whatever you have in a deck, for example.
Yes.
The presentation deck, your cash flows and all that. And most of the time is maximum of 3 years.
Yeah, 3 years, right?
So the more mature the company is, so if you're a scale up, maybe there's some predictability, so you can do something for like 2 to 3 years. But if you're a startup just starting out, it's like 12 months ahead, 24 months at the most.
Definitely. And from Charles' perspective, when the last paper you reviewed, right, on a startup, you had to map out 3 scenarios. When you are deciding whether they should get the funding or not, there were scenarios even on the financial planning that you did on your studies together with us, and then you were looking for certain outcomes on each of the scenarios, right? What were your thoughts on that, Charles, before we begin?
Yes, the time when I was doing a study on that company that we talk about,
Yeah.
We were looking at more of attractions. As a technology company, there's no guarantee of consistency. But what we wanted to see was activities. They have a lot of activities. They have a lot of attractions in a lot of markets. There's one endorsement that we saw that company is good. It's like MyFinB, you have a lot of endorsement, you have a lot of customer. Yes, MyFinB is a very good example that is a good company to invest because you have the traction, you have the customer base. That company has a customer base. They have the traction. They have a lot of customer in the pipeline. And they are being supported by very big agencies like United Nations, Sustainable Development Goal, and Asian Development Bank supported them. The Singapore government supported them. So as a startup, when a big institution like them supports a company like that, there must be something that they have done very well. And that we use that as a benchmark rather than a traditional business, brick and mortar business where you have a 3 years planning. And best still, that company runs on a subscription-based economy, which is similar to MyFinB. Actually, a lot of the business model is similar to MyFinB. So MyFinB being a market leader, being a very established company over the last 5 years, where you have 28 countries present, definitely investor will like MyFinB type of company because you have tractions, you have a big coverage around the world, and you have high caliber people in the organization. Yeah. One of the area that we look for is people who has a very strong team, a management team in the organization.
Thank you, Charles, for your vote of confidence. We will thank you for everyone's informal sharing about scenarios and how we cannot look beyond 12 months these days. We have to look at the current traction, and without knowing what's the future going to be like, so many uncertainties, we definitely need to have some visibility in terms of certain tractions or achievements or milestones. Ladies and gentlemen who have joined us, we were casually talking about how uncertainties can sometimes render startups' growth strategies become, somewhat lack of visibility. So we need to look deeper into the scenarios rather than just the solutions or projections at one point in time. We have to look across various scenarios. I think that's the key takeaway in a little session that we have. But for now, I would like to kickstart the session. But before that, I would like to pass this over to Miza, our host for today. Miza, over to you before we begin the session proper. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nazri. Good morning, afternoon, and evening, ladies and gentlemen. Wherever you are right now, we at MyFinB would like to welcome you to our webinar along with our partners from Help University, AIFA Asia, and ScaleUp Malaysia Accelerator. My name is Miza, and I am your host for today's webinar called Growth Strategies. We are pleased to have our guest speakers today, Professor Datuk Dr. Paul Chan, Vice Chancellor and President of Help University, Dr. Sivapalan Vivekarajah, Senior Partner and Co-Founder of ScaleUp Malaysia Accelerator, Mr. Charles Cheong, Founder and CEO of AIFA Asia Private Limited. Next, I'll share with you the profiles of the speakers. Professor Chan completed his PhD at ANU. He is co-founder of Help Education Group. He has an active academic, advisory, and entrepreneurial role in his life. He was involved in the first Industrial Master Plan of Malaysia, constructed and chaired the KLSE Composite Index, and was involved in 3 IPOs. He enjoys reading and music. Mr. Charles Cheong. Charles is an accomplished professional in procurement services, aviation, financial services, blockchain, banking operations, and technology and asset management industry with 30 years of experience in Asia Pacific, out of which 7 years are in commercial business aviation. Charles has multidisciplinary working experience in sales, technology, procurement, business and corporate advisory, private equity, aircraft leasing and charter, portfolio product development for both non-Sharia and Sharia-compliant investment-grade product for institutional clients across the Asia-Pacific market. Charles has extensive sourcing, procurement, and transactional experience in structuring deals and closed more than 300 deals to date when he was the procurement lead in Regional Procurement Office, Citibank Asia-Pacific, Singapore headquarters. He is fluent in English, Cantonese, Mandarin, Bahasa Malaysia, and Bahasa Indonesia. Finally, Dr. Sivapalan Vivekarajah, Senior Partner and Co-founder of ScaleUp Malaysia Accelerator. Dr. Sivapalan is a prominent entrepreneur and active angel investor who has successfully investments in technology companies in the edtech, proptech, travel, automotive, medical device, and internet industry over the last 35 years. First Malaysian to achieve a PhD in venture capital from University of Edinburgh, Scotland, he is also the co-founder for both ScaleUp Malaysia Accelerator and Prof CEO Consultants. The latter company has accomplished two major projects known as Coach and Grow Program, CGP, for Cradle Fund, and e-Usahawan Level Up Program for micro entrepreneurs initiated by MDEC. More than 2,000 entrepreneurs have been coached and mentored over the last 12 years in Malaysia. He has held various pivotal roles, including as president of Malaysian Business Angels Network, MBAN, Malaysia Venture Capital and Private Equity Association, MVCA, and Technopreneurs Association of Malaysia, TEAM. Dr. Sivapalan's stature grew in year 2019, where he was appointed to chair the Ministerial Task Force TF on Technopreneur Funding under Minister of Energy, Science, Technology, Environmental and Climate Change, MESTECC, and appointed to the Malaysian Venture Capital and Private Equity Development Council, MVCDC, by the Minister of Finance, Malaysia. He is a popular speaker, panelist, moderator, and writer in the technology space. This session will be moderated by Mr. M. Nazri, Adjunct Professor of AI, as well as this session will be moderated by M. Nazri, Adjunct Professor AI, founder and CEO of MyFinB Group, Center of Excellence in AI Innovation. Without much further ado, let me hand over to the moderator who will provide the context of today's session and kickstart the program.
Thank you, Niza. It's always great to have a different voice doing the introduction these days, yeah. So we always encourage diversity at the end of the day. So today's theme, it's all about growth strategies, right, in business. And most SMEs, big corporations, always have plans to grow their business and increase sales and profits. So there are certain methods companies must use for implementing a growth strategy. Now, the method a company uses to expand its business, however, is largely contingent upon its financial situation, the competition, government regulation, and the situation, okay, around it, the economics and the industry forces. So some common growth strategies in business include market penetration. It means your existing, your new markets that you intend to penetrate, market expansion, the existing markets they are in that you're trying to expand vertically and horizontally. Third is product expansion. So you're trying to widen and deepen your depth and breadth of your product and service offering. Diversification, you're trying to go lateral, you're trying to go horizontal to diversify your core services into non-core or ancillary to your core businesses. And last but not least, through non-organic methods like acquisition. So we are very honored to have three distinguished panelists and speakers, including our resident speaker, Dr. Paul, who will kick off the session with his observation about the strategies adopted by companies and industry players right now. Over to you, Dr. Paul. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Nazri, and good morning from Malaysia. This question about growth and growth is profitability is a very fascinating question. And it is a great challenge to founders, CEOs, board of directors, investors. To me, it's one big riddle, a puzzle, and even an enigma. We have read a lot of books, articles. We have studied many companies of all sizes that have failed and succeeded. Of course, in retrospect, we can always point out why they have succeeded and why they have failed. So the analytic power of all these studies is very useful. But I question the predictive usefulness of all these studies. Because despite all the scenario planning, there are still so many unknowables. And that's why for people like us who are in business, it makes this experience doing business, so exciting. We are part of this Schumpeterian creative destructiveness of the capitalist system. And in this capitalist system, somebody must fail and somebody must win. And the rules of the game keep changing, so we are not sure who will be the ultimate winners as long as you are in the game. I would present some broad issues this morning and some broad principles. My other colleagues will go for some specific issues in the discussion. What I plan to do is to remind ourselves about some very basic practical difficulties and challenges facing us when we run a business on a daily basis. Help University and the Help Education Group grew during the last 35 years from a very small institution of 30 students, 5 staff members in a shop lot with a very small turnover. It was not worth talking. Over the years, we muddled through, we learned to unlearn and relearned, we expanded, we diversified, we globalized. And the growth came with profitability. There was a profitable model embedded in what we did. Now the situation is different. We have to adapt to the new environment, which has to do with the 4.0 digital transformation, but disrupted by the pandemic. So the transformation has to be done, but it has to be done with accelerated speed, and that is the challenge. Because there are only so few variables that we play with. One, how to squeeze productivity out of time. Time is the most valuable resource. The talents we have. When we run a university, we need multiple talents. The academics, the researchers, the teachers, the administrators, and those who are fluent and proficient in the use of languages, and not the types of languages we talk about, the digital literacies. So time, talents, and the new technologies. And above all, we have to couple the academic part of it with the corporate part. And we need to be very resourceful. So it's not just resources, but the resourcefulness to help us to explore and to exploit the different niches in the total saleable market. So we are doing now our digital transformation. Now, at this moment, there are companies that are destroyed, businesses are destroyed because of the pandemic. And there are businesses and corporations that are in the sweet spot. They are blessed with not just growth, but growth with profitability. So the questions they have to answer are happy questions. If they want to sell and exit, they can make a big pile of profit, or they can continue to do the M&A, or they can continue with the organic growth and globalize. But for many small companies, family firms, small SMEs, and so on, the answers are not very clear because they are constrained by the collapse in demand, revenue losses, loss of market share, the loss of talents, or having irrelevant talents, credit crunch, they're just paralyzed. It's well and good to talk about business models, but to build business models, to build growth strategies need a long runway. And you're not given the long runway. We have to live by the day. If you are small, you're actually at the edge of the cliff. So how do we decide? And honestly, it has to be a case-by-case approach in the analysis. To me and to many businessmen, growth is a sort of a mindset in the founders. It's so natural to talk about growth. It's unnatural not to have growth. And all businesses can grow because there's no such thing as a mature business. Education, for instance, can never mature. There's spring every other month. There may be a forest fire, but there are always emerging niches in the industry. So there are always opportunities. But then not all growth at this moment is good. And by that I mean, if we are not careful, the growth may not be sustainable because we need to have a profitable model and it must be very capital efficient in the way we handle growth. Of course, the ideal situation to have, shall we say, balanced growth where we can control the cost and have innovative product development in time and to be part of an established supply chain, which is now digitalized. So the general view is having growth is less risky than not growing. Because if you don't grow in some ways, somebody would very soon capture your market, your human capital, and you'll be not in the game. And growth opportunities, as I say, are always there. The challenge in business is always how to identify and innovate the opportunity. I say innovate an opportunity to construct a differentiated business model that is sustainable. It is not identifying an idea, a product, a service, or even a share of the total saleable market. It is about having a particular type of business model that can sustain us such that we have some control points and such that therefore competitors cannot come in easily. Now, profit always matters as we talk about growth because it's very obvious. Right now we are always asking this question, every one of us. If you don't have the profit, losses will eat away the equity. Then who would invest in us? Would the banks lend to us? Would our talent stay on? Have we to abandon big projects, useful ideas that help us in the medium to long-term growth? So therefore, the answer is so obvious. We must have growth, but the profit and the profitability must be there because it is essential for first, at this moment, for survival. And it is needed to fund whatever diversification and expansion that we think about. And having profit means, and this is a paradox, this means we have the ability to persuade banks and angels and investors to come in because profit is a measure of our management and leadership capability that we can grow with a new value proposition. So with profit, it helps our valuation. We will still be in the limelight of potential investors. But above all, it gives us the confidence and some degree of freedom and authority to decide when we are facing the fork road. Where do we go? But then again, we come back to the simple question. How do we grow? And the usual answer would be, how do we select our customers? So customer selection. Value capture. We have to give value to these segments of customers. And from this value, we capture them as profit. But to do that, we must design the appropriate strategic controls. So in summary, profit is the primary goal. For a company that does not initially have investors, in particular, the small SMEs and so on, probably profit is the only capital that you have. And if the profitability model is not strong, it is very difficult to talk about the medium to long-term growth. So it seems rather obvious to keep on mentioning that profit matters. But as I've said earlier, this is the exciting part of business. How to innovate an opportunity, construct a differentiated business model, lock in the customers, lock out the competitors. But what is this particular business model for the business that each of us is now managing? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Paul. To sum up what he has said, very useful tips how SME and startups are now facing loss of market share. I've put down my summary of what he said online so that we can catch up on some of the key points that were shared. So it's about SMEs facing less credible talents, SMEs facing credit crunch, loss of market share, very paralyzed in order to build growth strategies, yet they are constrained by the immediate challenges of their day-to-day affairs. Now, the real issue is stemming down from the fact that nobody can predict many things accurately due to many unknown variables that Dr. Paul has mentioned. Now, this affects the accuracy of the predictability of things. Rules keep changing, changing rules of the game, right? Focus on things that we can control, such as innovation, cost control, and being part of an established supply chain that Dr. Paul recommended. Consciously seek and be part of a digital platform. So having growth to him is less risky than not growing at all. It's either you grow or you die, right? You don't do it, such as getting customers, somebody else will take away your customers. So Dr. Paul asserts that opportunities are there, but by constructing a differentiated business model and having a particular type of approach that can sustain and have some control points that competitors cannot come in easily, then you are on the right track. Grow if you must, but to him, profit is everything. Profit needs to be achieved in order to persuade banks and angels to come in. And profit to him is a measure for leadership and business capabilities. I would love to hear later on what Charles and Dr. Siva have to say about as part of growth, which is more critical for investors and for stakeholders like angels, right? Would it be high sales growth or high profit growth? One over the other, if you must take a pick between two ventures laid out in front of you. So as I would like to mention earlier, we have a little webinar worksheet that is flashed on screen for people to gather some pointers from each panelist, and you can see some of these points may not be discussed in sequential, but you can basically jot down some of the pointers and as a form of understanding and extracting their knowledge in terms of their experience, the types of growth strategies, the factors for boosting growth, as well as a key takeaway. So I encourage everyone to tuning in to download this document or this image, the file that has been shared. If you don't have, please request from the admin and then start scribbling or jotting down some pointers that can form part of your Q&A in order to fill up the branches. Now, it's my pleasure also to introduce the next speaker, Charles. Over to you, Charles. And we hope to hear more of your online-based strategy as a form of market, or as a form of growth strategies? Thank you. Over to you, Paul. Charles.
Thank you, Professor Nazri. Good morning, everybody. I am going to share with you, but Mizan, can I ask you to give me a screen sharing, or you can do it on your end?
Okay.
I'm not able to see the screen. I can't see my screen.
You're currently about to share screen.
Oh, okay. I'm on the share screen now. Okay, I can't see my the PPT. Can you flash it for me, Miza?
All right.
Thank you. Okay, while Miza is doing this, I have okay, thank you. Okay, let's go to the first slides. Can I go to the next slide? Yes, and when you look at this logo, you know who are these people. These are the people that is very close to you. You use it every day, Facebook, LinkedIn, Airbnb. What is something that they have in common? They are all technology companies.
Just the same port.
Oh,
Yeah.
not different. Asone.
Okay. Okay, next slide. Okay, can I go to the next slide, please? And you look at Dropbox as one of the technology company, and this company is very fascinating because they were able to grow the customer base by 40 times from 100,000 to 4 million, and it's all because of technology. And they received 2.8 million referral invites. I mean, they sent out 2.8 million referral invites. So what is so special about them? Because they have a great product at the time. Storage was a boom when everybody started to talk about iCloud and people talk about clouds, your cloud solution, cloud-based storage. So Dropbox has been there at the very beginning, and before they even complete the product, they were following what the big boys were doing. The people like Microsoft, people like or the big software company. They don't wait for the product to be completed to market the product. They start building their customer base, which is a community, even before they have a great product, before they even have the product ready for the market. So that helps them a lot, because while they are building the product, their customers, their community is also used as a test bed. Their community is also helping them. And that is where we talk about the power of leverage. We ourselves could not do certain things, but we leverage on other people to do it. And as a startup, and just now Dr. Paul was saying that, some industry is not so easy for you to move and change the strategy. But for a software company today, it's very easy, because software company is agile. And the company Dropbox question about the best practice in the market. And what works for other people, it may not work for you. So as a software company, at the time, most people will attract potential customers by using a method called the pay-per-click advertising, which is very expensive, because every time somebody click on the landing page that you advertise, it will cost you some money. It range from 50 cents to $1 to a few dollars, depending on how the demand and supply. And for this case, even though that was the most widely used method to get customers, but Dropbox didn't do it because it didn't work for them. Instead, they were using a referral-based marketing. And what they do is all based on individual word of mouth. If I have signed up Dropbox, I can just send a link to my friend, and if my friend sign up, I get an X amount of data storage for free. So I was one of those people who used their product at the very beginning, because at the time that they are offering a free storage, which is precious in the cloud. So because of this, Dropbox saw that there was a great response and it was growing very well. And they understand what is working, mainly because they are a technology company and they were using analytics between the company. So having technology in the organization today, it is an enabler. You understand what your organization is going through because you have the technology that will help you in your decision management. And today, this is what we call analytics. This is what we call artificial intelligence. And that is where MyFinB as a company is offering a very powerful enabler to the market, to any market around the world. Today, MyFinB is a global market player because of their solution. Gone are the days when you are based in one market and it takes you a long time before you can go to the global market. But you see that there is a very big difference or paradigm shift where MyFinB over the last 5 years, they have presence in 28 countries. They have a huge database of customers who use the platform. The customer itself speak volume from financial institution to government that subscribe to MyFinB services. The question is, there must be something that MyFinB has done. And what they have done is because MyFinB understood what they are going to offer to the customer. And their solution fits the market very well, especially during the pandemic when there is a movement restriction. When there's a movement restriction, and the best way is through digital marketing and through digital channel. And that is why you see that the Dropbox growth is incredible. They offer their product as a freemium, as a free product initially. And that actually reduced the cost per action. And of course, Dropbox also understood the power of collaboration. They collaborate with a lot of people, and because of this, the number of customers and users has grown tremendously, and to 300 million users, where in the traditional marketing is very difficult to grow in such a short time. You see, and of course now you see that there are a lot of competitors of Dropbox, but this is a market that will continue to stay. It's just like a TV market. Everybody has a TV at home, but the TV companies still survive and they sustain, because there's always such thing as a renewal. You want to change for a new model, and you sunset the old equipment, then you bring back something again. So this storage business will continue to prosper. And then the next company that I like it very much is called HubSpot. HubSpot and LinkedIn, these are the two companies that I personally use them very much. Yeah, they are growing very rapidly, very fast, and not just a consumer-focused company, but they have also done a lot of B2B. In today's market, consumer and business is combined. So you have to relate to each other, because you cannot ignore one sector. You have to address the market as a whole. And HubSpot is good because for anybody who start up a company, I have done startup, and they offer you a lot of free downloads, free documents, free templates. Like they offer you a free email signature template that you can use. Then after that, they offer you a tool, a link to your email signature that can do digital marketing. They can do call to action. And HubSpot is definitely a company that is growing tremendously, just like LinkedIn. LinkedIn, I remember when I first started using them, that was more than 10 years ago. And at the time, not many people use it. Today, LinkedIn is the most widely used company in terms of the platform, and over the last 10 years. I have 18,000 followers. For some reason, I put the right words in LinkedIn, and the search engine optimization works very well for me. And as a result, I have the followers who is tracking down of what I do. And if you look at what HubSpot did was, they have free tools. They give you free, and this is called freemium. And in return, if you use the product so much, one fine day when you have a product that they offer to you and you have to pay for it, there's a good chance that you will pay. So that is HubSpot. If you have a chance, check out this company. And I was talking about LinkedIn. Since they started until now, as of 2019, a company with 590 million subscribers, that is incredible. And every month they have 260 million people using their platform. And this platform is powerful because they use the search engine optimization is very effective. And if you follow what the algorithms, you follow some of the patterns that they use, this is one of the very good platform that you can do your marketing as a company commercially or as an individual. And LinkedIn is like any company, successful company. They know that they cannot operate alone, and they will explore all kinds of channels for their growth. And the growth strategy is like they will do in the next slide. They will integrate with other platforms, like for example, Salesforce.com, a company that I know. They have a lot of integration with other technology company that makes the solution powerful, and people use it because it's easy to use, easy to integrate, and that is why people like Salesforce is growing very well. And in LinkedIn, they have a lot of user referral, they have cross user endorsement, so it makes it a very pleasant experience and professionally very good platform for anybody who want to promote their business or individually as a professional. And of course, HubSpot is one of the company that you can go for free tools, so they can grow very well. And as we look into this, the next one will be Airbnb. Airbnb has a very good referral program that reverse engineer you, and if you invite your friends and your friends get rewarded as well, you get rewarded. So they have a very good system here that will help them to grow. And as a result, Airbnb is one of the fastest growing company at during that time. And to sum up in the next slide, the key takeaway is technology growth is all about finding a channel that works for you. What works for others may not work for you. So you need to find a channel that works. And if once you find the channel that works for you, and the best opportunity to grow, to double what you're doing is to repeat what you have done. And that is why MyFinB has been doing a lot of work that they found success and they replicate it in the fastest possible time. The next point is analytics is key. Today you need analytics. You need decision management tool, which is artificial intelligence. And all the big boys like Google Analytics is doing well, Keys Metrics, and all this has to be done by computer. And numbers, numbers will tell us a lot of information, but with numbers, we need some insightful data through decision management. So with this, I'm done with my sharing, and I hope you can get some insight of today's sharing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Charles. There are about 8 key takeaways from Charles' presentation. For those of you tuning in out of Zoom, or rather through Facebook Live, there are 8 key takeaways shared by Charles. Allow me to distill some of these 8. Yeah. Move away from traditional marketing. That's his overarching message. Second is, in the beginning, don't need to wait for products to complete, but launch first to create awareness, to assess the traction. So you don't have to wait for everything to be finished, then you sell. Okay, even if it's midway or in the beta version or the initial version, go for it. Yeah. The third part is about paradigm shift. Your mindset has to involve widening and deepening markets, break down barriers by offering freemium model. Fourth is about collaboration to grow. Don't be afraid to collaborate. Don't be afraid to partner with people. Don't view them as competitors all the time. Fifth, it's about building a community by using freemium model. So it's part of extension of item 4, which is collaborate to grow. But essentially, you need to build a strong community like what LinkedIn, Airbnb has demonstrated to do. And 6, very important, this is something that he's very familiar with, explore all types of channels to grow by integrating with other digital platforms to act as multiplier. So make your system talk to one another, make your business offering be part of somebody else's business, yet make the solutions powerful, more complete, and come out with win-win outcome with partners. So it's not about zero-sum game, it's about win-win that combines and synergize your offerings to the end user, and hopefully at a cheaper price, right? So this is what consumers are waiting for. 7th is to incentivize and giving rewards to customers in order to retain them. 8th, which I picked up from his key takeaway, is the A/B testing. That means, make mistakes early by testing different modes of market growth expansion, by looking at, a set of variables for A, a set of variables for B, and figure out which one deserves or the right strategies to implement. So with that, thank you so much, Charles, for sharing. Now we come to our third speaker, the distinguished Dr. Siva, who has extensive experience dealing with startups, dealing with investments, dealing with all sorts of successes, and seen lots of failures on the part of startups and more, I'm sure. So let us hear him out and take in all the key points that he has to share with us. And hopefully we ask the toughest questions to him and leave the easy ones to Paul and Charles. Yeah. Thank you so much. Over to you, Dr. Siva.
Thank you, Nazri. You can ask me any question, tough or easy, I'm fine. So just to give everyone just a quick overview of what I do. I run a couple of companies. So I'm a co-founder of a company called Profisio. And Profisio is a coaching program company. We coach companies for long term. So we coach them for about 12 months. We have coached under Profisio from micro entrepreneurs to early stage startups to late stage startups. We have coached about 1,000 companies and about 3,000 entrepreneurs. So we're probably the biggest coaching company in Malaysia. We have done many of them. Our companies have also got revenue in excess of 2.5 billion ringgit, and they have raised over 420 million ringgit as well, because we also train them to do fundraising. The second company I'm involved in at the moment is a company called ScaleUp Malaysia, and this is an accelerator program for late stage companies. So they're only for scale-ups. You must at least have about 300,000 ringgit revenue to qualify for this accelerator. We have invested in 10 companies so far, and we're going to launch our next cohort probably sometime next month. And we hope to invest in 50 companies over the next 2 to 3 years. And for this, we do invest. We provide between 200 to 250,000 ringgit, and we take a stake in the company, a minority stake. And our model is quite interesting in ScaleUp Malaysia. We call it the Pegasus model, which involves both high growth and profitability. So it's not about just high growth and losing money all the time, but how do you get a path to profitability while still building a high growth business? Personally, also, I'm an angel investor. I was a former president of the Malaysian Business Angel Network, and I have invested in about 16 companies personally. So let me talk about the topic for today, market share growth strategies, distinguishing between should you go for market share or should you go for profitability. So perhaps a little thinking about what's going to happen over the next 12 months in the world and in Malaysia as well. So I think the next 12 months will bring quite a lot of challenges, but together with that, there'll be a lot of opportunities as well. The long-term impact of COVID-19 and economic uncertainty, I think, will remain. It's going to be there for a while. Even if they find a cure for COVID, although there will be some spike in some industries like travel and tourism, for example, I think we will still feel the impact of high levels of unemployment, a lot of businesses having closed down. We probably feel the impact for a while. Will there be a V-shaped recovery or a U-shaped recovery? For those of you who are not familiar with these terms, V-shaped recovery means very quick economic growth. That means there's a big drop in the economy and then there's a quick spike up again. It's just like the shape of a V. I don't think that's going to happen. I think what we're going to see is a U-shaped recovery. That means there's been a drop. It will last maybe 12 months, 18 months, and then you will see a recovery. And this is a recovery on a global basis. So when you think about it, right, that there are challenges, there are issues, what does a company have to do? What do entrepreneurs have to do? So companies and entrepreneurs have to adjust to this. So here are a few things I think they should do. First of all, I think you've got to be lean and mean. When times are good, when money is easy, people hire all kinds of people and, you know, they spend money on a lot of excessive things and all that. I think for the next 12 months, you should be very focused on the business. You should cut out all excessive costs. You should think about how can you serve customers better? How can you optimize productivity of your staff and your resources? How can you get to cash flow positive in your business? You need to preserve cash, but you also need to use it wisely. So use it in terms of being able to produce better quality goods or services, be able to serve your clients better. And you must also focus on margins. I think over the last few years, you know, companies, a lot of companies have come up. You know, there's probably 10,000 startups in Malaysia. A lot of companies have come up, but many of them cannot survive. So Magic did a survey, I think sometime in February this year or March this year, and they discovered that 40% of startups will not survive more than 3 months. That's 40%. And at least about 80% cannot survive over 6 months. What this tells me is that companies have businesses, but they have no margins, they have no profits, they cannot build a long-term business. So, you know, what you need to do really is you need to focus on your margins, make sure you have sufficient cash flow at least for the next 24 months, because as long as you have strong margins, you have good cash flow, you will never, your business will never die. You can endure anything and you can endure for a long time. The other issue, you got to take care of your staff. I know some companies that had to let go of staff. Many of the companies I'm involved in have had to do that as well. That's fine. You know, you need to resize your business because times are quite challenging. But whoever is left behind, make sure you look after them well, but focus on their productivity. I have seen, you know, because we have worked with so many companies, many of them don't even measure staff productivity. So productivity is very low. We need to improve productivity. You need to take care of your customers as well. You need to make sure you have products and services that they need, especially in difficult times like this. And if you need to pivot, that is, if you need to do something differently, you should do that as well. If I give you one example, one of the companies I've invested in is a company called Easy Uni. Easy Uni is a company that provides leads or students to universities. So universities are always looking to get more students, and Easy Uni brings students to them. When the whole COVID thing happened and borders were shut, they couldn't bring students from abroad. Until today, borders are still shut, and we have no idea whether, if, you know, when will it open, when can students be allowed back in. So what they did was they pivoted and they built a virtual open day product, because what they discovered was that universities still want to attract at least local students, but students don't want to travel from abroad to come and visit your university. So they came up with a product called a virtual open day, and this has been really popular. And so, you know, they're making good margin from that business itself. The margin from virtual open day, which is a technology product, is at least 80%. So you know, they make some good margins from that. It is 80% not including the cost of development, of course. Let me address the issue of market share versus profitability of growth, profitable growth. So, you know, a lot of companies try to do this market share approach, right? And, you know, all they want to do is let's just grow market share, and grow market share, and let's not worry about cash flows or margins or profits. When fundraising is easy, you can do market share growth, because market share growth depends on the amount of funds you have in your business, or the amounts of funds you can raise. So, a lot of entrepreneurs fall for the hype. They read about, all these companies that raise, millions of dollars and trying to get more market share and stuff like that. I hate to burst your bubble, but the fact is venture capitalists only invest in 1 or 2 out of 100 deals that they see every year. So, if they see like 200 deals, they only invest in 2 to 4 companies. So that means 98% of companies or 99% of companies will not get venture capital funding. Of course, you can get other sources of funding. There might be grants via people like Cradle Fund, for example. There will be some angels investing in you. But these are normally small, so it can't really help you to grow this market share model that you have. And the market share model works when there's a lot of money in the ecosystem and VCs don't mind pumping in this money just to help you to grow your market share. But today, over the next 12 months, I think that's going to be quite challenging as well, right? So this whole market share growth at all expenses is going to be tough to implement. It was always tough anyway, but entrepreneurs never realized it because they did the hype. But I think it's going to be even harder now. So what should you do? I think you should go back to basics. You should build a profitable venture. You should build a venture that's cash flow positive. And don't fall for the hype, right? Now, it doesn't mean that just because you're looking at profitability or cash flow, it doesn't mean that you cannot have a high growth model. Yes, you may not have a super high growth model where you raise millions of dollars and just throw it at the market and try and grab as much market share as possible, right? But I think what's more important is that if you have products and services that your customer segments really need and they really want and they're willing to pay you a good price for, and you have a good margin out of it, you can always reinvest that margin into growth. So the critical part of this is to have a good business model. You must have a good business model that enables you to grow and to scale. And you must have a good business model that allows you to raise sufficient margins, gives you a buffer of cash that you can reinvest both in product development, in serving your customers, and also in building some of that market share. So this is what we do in ScaleUp Malaysia. We identify companies that we think have the potential to both grow the market share and to actually get to a path to profitability. And for us, a path to profitability means in 2 to 3 years' time, you must be a profitable company. And we have discovered there are companies with those kind of models. We work extensively on building a scalable model. Now, if you can build a scalable model, and that's not easy because a lot of entrepreneurs don't understand how to build a scalable model. What's a scalable model? Charles just now shared things like Dropbox and so on, but don't forget they also did raise a lot of money. Now, in this part of the world, it is not easy to raise that kind of money, right? So I think entrepreneurs have to look for models that will allow them to build both market share as well as profitability. Now, if you can find a model like that, then you will be a successful company. So that's really the biggest challenge in building a successful business. So I'm happy to answer questions on this, and I pass it back to Nazri. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Siva, for a unique take on how market share versus profitability strategy should be adopted. So before we move on to the Q&A in the next 10-15 minutes, I would like to draw your attention on some of the key points that Dr. Siva has mentioned. He believes that having a combination of market share and profitability is the way to go, no matter how difficult it is. It is certainly the holy grail that we should be aiming for, right? And I mentioned some of his key points in the Zoom group chat, which is pretty self-explanatory. But you can see, based on the statistics by Magic that he shared, that's quite a very scary statistics to look at, yeah? 4 out of 10 won't survive more than 3 months. 8 out of 10 cannot survive over 6 months in today's climate. And business that he saw cannot build a sustainable long-term business without having profits, and need cash flows in the next 24 months is the way to expect a business that can sustain itself. Dr. Siva brought up a very potentially debatable and certainly discussable, if there's such a word, point, because he says that, well, go for profitability, good cash flow business, even as a startup. You may not have a super high growth model, but enough margins, enough growth top line. by reinvesting your margins to invest in your top line growth, and within 2 to 3 years, you must be profitable. So you've got to look for models that have both market share and profitability, if you can find them, or if you can develop them to be one. So with this important statement that he has shared, I would like to open the more discussions on this to the floor, and in fact to the panelists, yeah? Noting that we have probably about 10-15 minutes, maybe Datuk Paul, while waiting for questions from the floor, would you be able to comment about the remarks? I mean, that Dr. Siva shared about, you know, well, look for both, you know, and regardless of what industry, business you're in, look for both. And what are your comments on that?
I think both Charles and Dr. Siva have highlighted different insights about the success stories of different types of businesses. But we always remind ourselves that the particular contexts are different. For example, in the case of Tesla, Uber, and such like silicon culture type of companies, they could have this, we call it the bliss scaling approach. They can splash cash and just capture and dominate markets and attract more investors later, even though they do not make a single cent. In around cannot remember the exact date, 2018 maybe, or no, earlier maybe, Lyft, LYFT, was given a valuation of about 240 billion, although it has lost $1 billion US. Now that type of things are very rare, and that's a type of Wall Street, Silicon Valley culture. But we must be very down to earth about how we do business in Malaysia and in this part of the world. We don't have that type of huge total sellable market to begin with. And here we are starting to construct and be plugged into various types of supply chains. So here the questions have to be, we need to be very cautious, as Dr. Siva has alerted us. There may be tempting opportunities, but I think the word is be very, very mindful of the minefields when we grow. So the first question for some takeaways would be, as from Charles and Dr. Siva, do we have a product market fit, FIT, or need customer fit? Is there some uniqueness in that particular product market fit? And we are also reminded about the critical importance of the distribution structure. Here we talk about the platform, strategy, product platform, and so on. Because without that platform as part of the supply chain, and you would notice by now, even big companies like Huawei and so on are affected, we cannot grow. So the distribution structure must be there to support us. And when we talk about customer surveys, whether we are offering services or products, the whole alignment has to be there now, because the customers are so fickle-minded and so demanding. So Michael Porter's reminder is also relevant. There are numerous substitutes and numerous emerging players. We're not even competing with the existing competitors. At any moment, there's a new emergent player in the market. So hence, how to sustain our differentiation in the breadth of our offerings is important. But the question always remains, how do we have sustained dominance of a market such that we can build a vast arsenal of cash, a talent pool, a dominant role in the supply chain, and when critical and expected and knowable like the pandemics happen, we are always ready to fight the next battle. So in summary, this is a time for consolidation as we aim to attack, to conquer in the next round. So it's not aim, attack, conquer, consolidation. Now it's consolidate and repeat the cycle. Everything comes back to the leadership of the founder, and now the leadership as in collaborative leadership, having a talent pool to support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Very insightful indeed. We've gotten your key points listed out in the Zoom group chat. Your thoughts quickly on Charles before I pass on to Dr. Siva on some questions, follow-on questions to his remarks. Go on, Charles. Thank you.
Yeah, for me, it's more of it's all about growth. How fast can you grow the company in the shortest time? I think the way to grow exponentially is to leverage on all channels that we can think of that is accessible to us. That I think that will be the key to survival, because you need to have the numbers. Even though I may not have a big margin, but as long as I have continuously, as what Dr. Siva said, cash flow positive business, yes, we can sustain. So the key will be sustainability and cash flow positive. And in order to achieve this, we need to have a big reach out. We need to have the numbers. We need to have reach out to customer base. Yeah.
Thank you, Charles. So my questions relating to Dr. Siva's sharing plus Dr. Paul and Charles is that within your portfolio of startups, Dr. Siva, which of the common growth strategies do you see them pursuing right now? I mean, you are looking and helping thousands of startups in Malaysia, for example. So are they penetrating into new markets? Are they expanding on their existing markets? Are they expanding their product offerings? Are they diversifying? Or are they in the later stage are trying to consolidate or merge with other startups to form a more amalgamated offering, so to speak? So I just want to pick your brains, your thoughts on the kind of startups or companies that are going through growth strategies right now based on the mind map that you are seeing in front of the screen. Roughly, how many % are they gravitating towards certain branches as opposed to the other branches? Dr. Siva?
Okay, thank you, Nazri. I think the primary thing that most of the entrepreneurs are doing now is consolidation, like what Dr. Paul mentioned. Because of COVID, a lot of their markets have been affected, a lot of their customers have been affected, top line revenue is definitely down. So they have to consolidate. Many of them are preserving their cash, so they are not spending as much on growth. But one thing that really stands out is very few companies are actually built for growth. They may be built for technology and they do all kinds of other things. But if you look at, for example, the ratio of salespeople or marketing people to the rest of the staff, it's always very small. You may have a company that's about 20 people and they have 2 to 3 salespeople, right? You may have a company that's about 30 people and they have 2 marketing people. So I think that's something that's a little bit lopsided, and a lot of companies are starting to discover that today, because when times are good, even 2 salespeople might be enough. When times are bad, you need to have more salespeople. So I think one of the key things really is you need to look at your growth strategies, right? Is it top line focus or bottom line focus? It has to be both. That's why I talk about margins. There are companies that actually have good top line growth, but they just go for sales at all expenses, but they have very little margins. And on the long term, they will struggle and they will not make it. So I think companies need to relook and build a sales-oriented business. So a lot of entrepreneurs don't have this. right? You need to build a sales-oriented business where you are very focused on both your top-line sales as well as making sure that your sales are bringing you sufficient margin. Now, if companies can build a really solid sales team, a good marketing team to bring in leads, for example, these are the companies that will see more growth in the coming months and coming years. So that's something we're trying to get most of our companies to do, right? So if you have 2 sales staff out of 20, you better have 5 sales staff out of 20. You know, those kind of stuff.
But Dr. Siva, when you are looking at, this applies to Charles and Datuk also, right? When you see a startup who has just been set up, right? And you are dealing with investors in the seed or pre-seed round, so surely they are not able to deliver their KPIs and numbers, as Charles said. The numbers, you know, setting up channels overnight within the first year, 2 years. So doesn't everybody think that the first 2 years they will struggle, even from day one, right? To get the double objectives that you mentioned. So I don't disagree with you, but I just want your advice on how do you speak to a pre-seed or early seed companies that do not have the ready channels, that Charles talked about, that doesn't have the top line and bottom line because they just got the pre-seed money, right, to build up their foundations, build up business. Yeah. So in such a way, in this COVID climate, how do you expect those companies to ever get early stage funding before burning some cash and not being able to get customers from other people, not being able to give substantial discounts? And then Charles mentioned about freemium model. To give freemium model, you got to give a lot of costs, right? Especially those in B2C is very expensive. So that's why one of the things that, of course, we're talking about different stages of startups here. So now I'm talking about a scenario of the early stage, but then those who are managed to, survive the valley of death, so to speak, do they keep existing customers? From what I hear from you guys, they are consolidating. That means they are trying to keep their existing customers, less of getting new ones. So my questions are two-tiered. What are your thoughts on this, Dr. Siva, before passing on to the rest?
Okay, so I think at the very early stage, as you set up a company, as you're initially starting out, a lot of companies that we have discovered come from the angle of I build my product first and then look for my customer segment, right? Okay. And these are the guys that will struggle to survive. Because sometimes and very often they build a product that customers don't actually need or don't actually want. So our advice really would be switch this around. Make sure you understand who your customer segments are. Make sure you know what they need or what they want and build products to fulfill that need. Now, if you build a product to fulfill a need and you know for sure there is a need, and if you build the right product, this is where you get your product market fit that Paul talked about earlier.
Yes, that's what he mentioned.
Right? So,
yes.
So the angle must be, is there a customer segment? Do I know what they want or what they need? And can I build it for them? Because if you do that, from the early stage, you will have business already. The problem is a lot of them build products that nobody wants.
Yes.
Right? So that's the issue, right?
Dr. Siva, you are saying, sorry to interrupt, you are saying as if, right, startups nowadays, right, if there's a bunch of graduates who are unemployed and trying to do their own startups, it's as if you are saying that, hey, get customers first with your products before meeting up with the VCs. Sorry to sound very direct, but is this what you are saying? Yeah.
Actually, at the early stage, forget about even meeting up with VCs because VCs don't invest at that stage, right? Correct. So we always say, you got to get money from the 3F: friends, families, and fools, right?
Yeah.
So basically, at the early stage, you have to fund it yourself. You have to have skin in the game. Get some money from your mom, pop, uncle, whoever. Put some money in. Put your own money in, right? But you must always make sure that when you're building something, you know who the client is, who wants what, right? That way, so we have this thing called MVP, right? Minimum viable product, right? Now you must talk to people, talk to potential clients and say, okay, what is it that you want? You understand what they want. You build a minimum viable product. You take it back to the customer and say, okay, you wanted this, here is the product, right? And if they use it and they're willing to pay you money for it, you got a business, right? If you build something, you take it to them and say, well, this is nice to have, I don't really need it. That's it, you're dead in the water, okay? So always, whenever you're starting up a business, go and find a customer segment that you know will buy your product. Then you are secure. right? Now, for later stage companies, right? If you're already in a late stage companies, you should already have product market fit. If you don't have product market fit, you've got to go back to basics again, go back to the customer segment and make sure you identify what they need and then you build the product. And that's the failing of most entrepreneurs, by the way, right? They may be tech people or they may be marketing people and they just say, oh, let's just build this, or they see, oh, this is happening in America or China, let's do the same thing here. And they haven't spoken to a single customer before they build the product. And that's the biggest problem we have.
Very loud and clear message given by Dr. Siva to any of you out there that are either existing business owners that want to pivot with new businesses, or even young people about to set up a new business, or even professionals who want to set up their own business. Prove that there's a product market fit, get customers, fund internally first, cannot escape not funding it internally, and then you are ready to meet investors with ready clientele, ready market, whilst proving that you can achieve high sales growth and high bottom line growth, high profit growth. It's a very difficult situation for any startups right now, right? To prove the double goals, top line and growth within the first year or 2 years or within months. So Dr. Paul talked.
Prof. Nazri, I want to emphasize what Dr. Siva has mentioned. During the last couple of months, I have been advising 3 startups, young graduates. Within 2-3 months, they disintegrated.
Wow.
And what Dr. Siva said is important, and I want to emphasize that if you do not have cash for at least 2 years, don't ever do a startup now. You must have a long runway. Even though you may have a good need customer fit or product market fit, because you need at least 2 years to build a proper, suitable business model. And for young startup people, the lack of expertise and insights is very crucial to failures, because they have now been burned before. Everything is idealistic. And they look at all the big success stories of Alibaba and finance and so on and get carried away. But to run the business is a very painful experience and a lot of personal and family sacrifices. And to have a tight team. And for many instances in startups, they start up as friends and end up as enemies, or no more friends. So these are the personal costs to startups. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Charles, final word from you?
Yes.
I mean, you've always talked about numbers. Remember when you want to present to the family offices?
Yes.
Without the numbers, without the traction, forget about meeting those investors. Same thing as what Dr. Siva echoed earlier. So you're a big believer of that, actually. Could you share a little bit more on that?
This is from my personal experience. When 20 years ago, when I first started my first company, I had $0 in my pocket. Literally, I was zero. I don't have any money at all. And I didn't build a product to sell to the market, but I found that there's a customer who needed that product. I went to talk to the customer. My entire business was funded by the customer. So, and I know day one, I have cash flow positive because I persuade the customer to give me the deal, the project, and persuade the customer to give me down payment, persuade the customer to pay me promptly so that I can pay my workers. I was doing a CCTV business. And I persuade the customer to do it for me because I said it's for your own good, because I said told the customer 3 times. It's one of the biggest Japanese company in Singapore. They are publicly listed. And I remember talking to the project director. He said, no, if you want to do a project with us, you got to, we cannot pay your down payment of 30%. I said, no, if you don't pay me a down payment, I cannot help you. I'm not a bank. I cannot finance your project. You cannot ask me to finance a project because I'm not a big player. So unless you are prepared to finance the project, you finance my business, then I'll do it for you. And on the 4th time, he came back to me and said, okay, I'll give it to you. I get a 30% down payment. I funded the business and I have a 30% profit margin. And that is why I always believe in numbers. without cash flow positive is day one failure. If I don't have any cash flow in the business, I get very nervous. So personally, anybody comes to me with numbers and say that they have a pipeline, they have spoken to the customer, the product is acceptable, I think this is the type of company that worth working with, looking at. And because that is personally from my personal experience, numbers speaks for itself.
Thank you so much, Charles, Datuk Paul, as well as Dr. Siva. So let me wrap up this session, and a big thanks to our distinguished panelists for sharing such insightful and impactful advice. I hope all participants have managed to get some of the nuggets of wisdom from them and their experience. And I would like to say a few things before we end the session. And for those of you who can stay on, we will let the session on for 15 minutes virtually with the music on, but you can post your questions there. So essentially what we've heard from the panelists is that startups and small businesses set out their chosen markets with a lot of ample enthusiasm and positivity. This may take them far, but in the current environment, to succeed in such competitive and crazy markets, it is prudent to have a tangible long-term business growth plan that looks at both top line and bottom line. No more hypes, no more beautifying with projections and fanciful numbers. You've got to show upfront your top line and bottom line has that figures and numbers to back it up with. The unfortunate truth is that many startups or SMEs fail because they have not done this, as what mentioned by Dr. Siva, Datuk Paul, and Charles. Without it, the new business cannot reach, can only reach a plateau far sooner than expected. And this stage may be what you call the death knell or the valley of death, right? Yet, the advice given by our panelists is that it is possible to turn things around by looking all the suggestions that they suggested earlier, by implementing consolidation-based strategies with a view of top line and bottom line. Like I said, no choice. You have to be double, tiered strategy there. So if you're at a stage where your business needs a boost and fast, it is time to figure out what sort of growth strategy can be put in place. In the mind map, we looked at market penetration, market expansion, product expansion, diversification, and acquisition. Unfortunately, we are so embattled with firefighting. We are going through what you call consolidation before any of those can take place for the majority of SMEs and startups, right? So this webinar, really, it's about understanding how to embark on that business growth by consolidating first, so that your business has every chance for short-term and long-term survival, right? So with that, thank you once again to the audience. Thank you once again to Datuk Paul, Charles, and Dr. Siva for the very, very wonderful exchange. I learned a lot from them, and I hope you do too. So with that, thank you so much, and we shall let the session go on virtually. Feel free to leave, feel free to stay, but essentially we will carry on for the next 15 minutes for any virtual Q&A. Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Prof. Nazri and Charles and Dr. Siva.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Dr. Paul.
Thank you, Dr. Paul. Thank you,
One
Dr.
day
Siva.
for lunch or something.
Thank you. Thank you, Charles.
Yeah, Dr. Siva, we are happy to work with you for your ScaleUp Malaysia Accelerator. Someday we'll catch up, yeah?
Yeah, let's do that, Nazri. Happy to do that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for having me on the panel as well.
I
really enjoyed it.
It's a privilege. Yeah, we enjoyed that too. I mean, it's very nice to hear from the VC and startup point of view, and you've really helped a lot of businesses. I've heard a lot of Proficio from LinkedIn. I see you do a lot of work with the government, but your other partners actually do that. I mean, seems to be more active social media wise. There's another guy, right? Proficio.
Yes, this who keeps, my partner is Renu.
Yes, and see him a lot in LinkedIn. But
see her, it's a her.
Oh, her, sorry. No, there's another guy actually from Proficio.
There are quite a few, probably from ScaleUp Malaysia.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Sorry, from ScaleUp. Correct.
Yeah.
So in any case, keep up the good work that you do with the startups and SMEs. You work well with MDEC and this Magic, right?
Cradle Fund, MDEC, and Magic. Yes.
Very good. Very good. Okay.
Yeah.
So you are you part of the Tech Partner program that they have recently issued out?
No, not at the moment.
Okay, so you should look into that. I think there's a lot of activities going on. They call it the Tech Partnership Program.
Okay. I know there's quite a lot of initiatives. It's a bit hard to keep up actually.
Yeah, that session identifies tech partners, tech trainers, and tech education providers as part of an ecosystem. And what they do is they basically, in fact, there's an upcoming session involving a show and tell between providers and customers. So MDEC plays this role where I'm not promoting MDEC, but essentially I know based on what they invited us for. Basically, we have guys like Silver Lake, I think a few other tech companies, MNCs as well as local, that they connect with the ecosystem and customers. So it's more like a structured program this time as opposed to loose program. So hopefully it's a new thing for all of us. So we're just curious, it'd be lovely if you could join us for that. I think it's open to the public too. And you could also plan some of your startups that have some traction, to be part of that program.
Yeah,
I'll get Miza to send over. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Nazri.
Thank you.
Look into that as well.
No problem. All right. Take care, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.